Council to order for Monday, August 27th, 2018. And I'll need approval of the agenda. Councilor Kirby, all in favor? Hey, they got the Tunbridge Museum Foundation as a delegation, but I think 3.1 to 3.2 are the together discussing the question. I think.
It's up to you.
That's what I thought. You're welcome up to the table.
These no, leave the museum or we shift down? The directors or?
How are you? I think I know the answer to this question, but you're all board members, right?
Say that again?
You're all
Yes.
board members?
Yes. Our paleontologist went through the fossil collection and picked out the three fossils here.
Well, that's good. Well, welcome to our meeting, and as you know, we were talking about the name change to a community survey from a referendum. I guess that's because the province has changed that kind of thinking. Is that?
It's just more clear. So referendum isn't really clear on what it is. It's not used anymore. So there's assent voting, which is required legislatively for certain things. This is a non-binding question. So whatever the results are, it's going to be the choice of the next council what they want to do.
So as long as you understand that. There's a little bit of history there, but we came up, I guess this is between myself and Jordan. Council hasn't approved these questions or anything, so but we wanted to have your input on them before we really got serious about them. But that's got to happen in the near future because it's got to be done into the government. What we're doing here for the election, certain time before the election. I don't know if one of you wants to lead off with your ideas. Go ahead, Fred.
Well, I think mainly, unfortunately, our president can't be here, and hopefully you all have in your material the letter from the president, and that's we're desiring to have consultation move forward into jointly with ourselves and the council and the regional district and so on to try to put a joint working relationship together to move forward and be able to retain growth that's already been made, and hopefully through that process it can be much more guidance in how it needs to go to satisfy every party going forward to have a very, very special and well, widely known, very successful museum, and we can't do that ourselves. We've got to all do it together. Is our feeling, and our president's letter, I think, had that information. So that's playing those games again. It's okay. So we want to as I say, get the committee going together so as we can work on what we have. Where services should be, and we need to have that properly worked on to move forward.
Okay, I've said the same thing for many years, that we've got to, I know how important the museum is and has been for this town. And we do have to work together to come to some sort of agreement of where we're going. And I think that's, it's been brought up with the idea of the museum committee, the advancement committee, or whatever, we haven't named it yet, but but it's a little late in this term to really get serious about that. I think it's something that's going to have to happen next term with the new council. I was just wondering, do you see value in what we are trying to do here?
Well, I mean, the ultimate aim is to get the province on board. We're the only province in the country, and if you include the US, there's 50 states that support their provincial and state museums. BC is the only one that doesn't. And this paleontological museum is a gem in the Peace region. And we need to get the province on board, but to do that, the museum can't do that itself. The province won't look at anything if there's no local support. So we've got to get council involved, we've got to get the regional district involved, we've got to get the geopark, now that that's in place, involved, we've got to get the Aboriginal community involved, because everything, impacts them as well. And so if we can get this museum development committee going with all those people, who have I left off? There's the Aboriginal community, there's the regional district, there's the DTR museum, the geopark. Is there anybody else that I've left off?
Well, I think the government departments too.
Well, yeah, and government departments,
particularly
the Heritage Department and Tourism are very much concerned about this. We've had letters, you've had letters from them about this whole business, and so they've got to be involved. We had a letter from the minister. The ministers themselves really, it's their staff have to get things going. We had a letter from the minister that sort of said, oh, you've had I see you've solved your funding problem for this year. Have a good day. Thank you very much for, But it's the staff who are aware of what's going on. And if we lose the museum, which is the anchor of the geopark, we stand a good chance of losing the geopark too. I mean, through no fault of our own. So it's not just a question of, we're coming here saying, well, we want the funding. We want the support. So we can, en masse, as a delegation, go to the province and say, look, this is what you've got here. We've got Mike Bernier, or MLA, on board. Definitely. He's sort of trying to work, his side. Of course, it's a little difficult for him. He's opposition now. And he's also dealing with a lot of new ministers who are still learning the ropes. And but that's basically we want this. We call it the Museum Development Committee, and we want to get that going. And that's sort of basically what we want to work together, not work against each other.
I think I believe the other thing is your comment about, well, it's a little too late for this council to do it. I think it's this council that needs to do it, or else a new one has to go by what you guys have kind of passed on, and or that's the information they'll have. So I think it's much better to try to get the structure set up, how we're going to. We don't have to figure out what we're going to do. We just got to get the structure set up. Yes.
I'm just wondering what letter you're referring to from the president. I'm just wondering what letter you're talking about.
Well,
I just want to confirm, because I'm looking through my emails. I have nothing from the president of the TRMF.
Okay. There's no use of discussing about that. It's just suggesting that we need to do just exactly what we talked about here. Is we need to get the committee, we need to go so that we can get the province involved and we can get that started. So it's whoever the new council is.
I think the letter that you're concerned about, Daryl, came from the Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture to the museum, talking about our request for a meeting about funding. And the response was, get your own local act together first before we talk to you.
So Fred, that's the letter you're talking about?
That's the one you're talking about?
Like, I'm wondering which one you're referring to. I'm just trying to pull some, when you're saying that,
You
discuss about the letter from the president, I'm trying to pull it up with her not being here, I know it's tough.
You likely wouldn't have seen that.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, well, we got, that Brian Yonkers come tomorrow, I think he's meeting
Yeah.
with you guys, and he's meeting with us.
I think there are some things happening in the background at the below the ministerial level that are indicating that at least tourism and heritage are both starting to stand up and take notice of what the situation is here, and are indicating some willingness to cooperate on dealing with the situation. I think we need to take advantage of that, and Brian's appearance tomorrow is one of those things.
Minister Ralston is coming
But
here.
as a board, we're collectively, if I can step back a minute, I'm a volunteer. I live in the town. I volunteer, I don't get paid for what I do, but I try to make the town better. And I know that we all have to work together to do that. We're all of the same mind. We need to get together. We need to get on the same page. We need to treat each other with respect. And without pointing fingers, that's not always been the case in the last couple of years. But we can look at both sides and point fingers. We need to get beyond that.
How close are we to having like terms of reference, or what everyone's idea for that museum development committee should consist of?
Well, we haven't had a real meeting on it. That's the problem we were going to have, and then,
Because with UBCM, if we're going to take anything, like if we show that we have a committee in place going forward, and that, there's the museum, however many partnerships that we are going to involve, if there's going to be, one or two from the geopark, some counselor liaisons.
That all needs to be sorted
Yeah,
out.
and
Yeah.
UBCM is coming up
And we-
right around the corner.
We
so-
can't predict all that.
Yeah.
Well,
We
that's,
can't.
so is
You
this what we-
suggest some of those things that we think need to be done, but we need to be at a table together.
Well, that's where this
Which
committee-
appears like has been a very big difficulty in the past.
well, I think the biggest problem we've had is lack of communication. Like, we're hearing secondhand what you guys are doing, and you're hearing secondhand what we're doing. That's where the committee would come in, would be good. And I agree with that. I think when you're talking about provincial government, I think we've got them in a good spot right now, that there is some pressure on them to do something, because it's really come out that they have been doing nothing. And,
But if we don't get
you're right
together,
you're also
Go
right
forward
that
on
if
that.
we don't get together and solve our own problems, they're not gonna step in here. Well, there's a fight going on.
No, that's right. Yes, I mean, we have to have everybody locally on board before they'll even talk to us.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's a good thing that Brian Yonke is coming up, because that's the other thing that happens, is that a lot of these people, they're down in Victoria, down in Vancouver. I mean, where they have to get a map out to find out where Tumber Ridge is in the first thing, little dot on the map. And so when we say we've got a museum here that we want to, you to get behind, that they sort of their mindset is, oh, it's a hobby museum, you know, it's the Hudson's Hope type of museum, you know, it's a one room, you know, with one guy in charge type of thing, because it's a small town. And when they come here and see what we've got here, that's when it really clicks home. And it's a good thing that Brian Yonker, I think Charissa managed to persuade him to come up. They've been in contact by email and phone and stuff like that. And she was saying to him, well, why don't you come up and see this? And I always remember when Bob Zimmer, first time he came, he stood in there and he said, my goodness, he said, I never imagined this. He said, I'd heard you had a museum, but I never knew it was anything like this. And that's what's important. That's why it's really good that Brian Yonker from the tourism department is coming up, because he will see physically, you know, with his own two eyes, what we actually have here. What we don't have a hobby museum run by a group of sort of retired people with volunteers. We do. I mean, we're retired. And we are volunteers. But I mean, we have a professional, museum that is the gem of the province in paleontological. That research. I mean, now 2 paleontologists have become world famous, and people contact them from all over the world because we are considered to be, the center of excellence at 3D imaging. That's been developed by our paleontologists, and now researchers from all over the globe find fossils, and they take photographs, and they send those photographs to us, who then, and our paleontologists convert them into 3D images. And that is, I mean, that's a real asset that we have. And I mean, the world, the paleontological world knows about us, but the provincial government doesn't, and that's the problem. And that's why we've got to get this committee, get a task force, as so to speak, and go to the provincial government and say, come and look at this. And we're always inviting the ministers to come up. Carol James, she's the Minister of Finance. She was up, 2 years ago, and when she was in opposition, and Jim showed her around the museum and whispered in her shell-like ear, this place really needs provincial funding, and then she went home and she was going to book her grandchild in for one of our dinosaur camps the following summer, which would have been this summer, and obviously that fell through because of the funding difficulties. But any time we get sort of politicians here, we try to sort of make sure they become aware of what we've got here.
We have brought politicians here too. To the district. And we've had Shirley Bond and Lieutenant Governor was here for the opening of the Geopark, which we included the museum. We had it at the museum, part of it. And we flew them around and riverboarded them around and showed them what we had here, and they were very amazed with what went on. And that developed into a meeting in the Premier's office with 4 ministers, which a town this size never gets, but we did get it. They come back with a bunch of, that's how the road got its upgrading and all that stuff to Canoso Falls. They also came back with, they sent Bruce White, Brian White, Bruce White, up to do a visiting session up here. And they left a lot of, they said, this is what we see, this is where this should go. And it never did develop. And I think if we're doing it again, we've got to listen to these people from the province. We've got to do what they say, or at least talk to them about, okay, maybe we can't do it exactly that way, but let's do it, but have the conversation that we want to try and satisfy the provincial government, because that's the only way we're going to get the funding. If we're not going to do
what
it.
we're trying to say here tonight is we would welcome that opportunity,
Yeah. Okay.
but it's council that has to develop that opportunity.
Yeah.
It's not, we can't develop it.
We seem to have been cut out of that conversation some of the times in the past. And I don't want to put a negative connotation on that. It's what happened, and let's live with it. But
But we all have issues with the past, we don't want to discuss
We need
that.
to know, we need to know what your expectations are, what the province's expectations are, so that we can try to tailor our programs that way. There are some issues that I think we're all confronted with this issue of local support. And our emphasis, not our entire operation, but our heaviest emphasis has been on the science. And that really should be a provincial responsibility to fund that. But we haven't had any success in having that conversation so far. The response from Carol James was very positive. She twigged her senior ministerial assistant to get in touch with Charles and I and provide us with some advice. We followed her advice and it just dead ended. And so I think we might need to go back and talk to her again and say thanks for the advice, but somebody needs to follow up on it. But I think that is happening at the lower levels in the departments now. They're starting to wake up that something happens. It's like the boil needs to be popped, and it's getting close here right now. And I think it's a poor analogy, I know. It's a poor analogy, I know. But sometimes things have to get bad before they get better. And I think that's the stage we're at right now. And we need to get better.
I think we all seem to agree around this table that development committee, museum development committee would be a good idea, and maybe we can start the wheels rolling with this council. The last 2 months we're here, and it would be something that the next council would take on.
I think it's imperative that it's this council that gets that started. You don't have to do it. It don't have to happen before, but at least it gets to be a pretty good subject at the election time as well. And then hopefully there's a lot more people with a bit more knowledge of what really the issues are for both sides.
We're looking for something positive to take to UBCM too. We would be talking to ministers, so that would be positive.
By what I haven't been involved in any part of that discussions about the committee before. I'm pretty new to a whole lot of that sort of stuff, even though I've been around since before when the museum started. I was on regional district, and at regional district I was always, well, pretty well always the chair of the recreation committee at regional district. I never missed any of these sort of things. I toured far more for the regional district than I did for our own community, because our own community depended on all the rest of the communities doing well, or else our community wouldn't do well. And that's what the regional district can do for us, and as far as I'm concerned, and that's what it did for me as mayor of Taylor. I would like to see that same opportunity happen here with this. There's been a lot of things happen. Notice the time the community was built, I wasn't quite as involved with things like that, but I was very aware of it. And I had a lot of friends and even relatives that worked on the actual building of this community. Father-in-law ran a gravel truck, and he hauled on the railway, and he also hauled for the streets in town. Did a lot of that sort of work. So.
Anybody else on council got any questions?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to say thank you to Jim and Fred and Bob for all the work you have put into the museum. I don't think you've ever lost the support of council. You've maybe lost maybe we've lost, we're kind of really looking at the funding issues and trying to move forward. I mean, our goal was always to get the provincial funding for the PRPRC. And I think when in Bruce's summary, he quotes Fred quite a few times in that, because really we were working together really well there, and I think we're not far from that. And I would really like to see this council move forward and get that meeting started, sitting down. Of course, we're going to need the presidents and vice presidents there, and start with something just maybe with ourselves, and you know, PRRD could be sitting on that. You know, we've got a good bunch just to kind of start this off with, and it would be nice to have something to go to UBCM with, for sure. But
Excuse me, when is the UBCM meeting?
September 9th would start.
So
That's a couple
It's,
of months.
but yeah, I would not want to leave this to a new council coming in. It'd be nice to get this solved, a lot of it, and I really don't think we're that far off. I think really it comes to how we move forward together, because this is a new beast now with the geopark and the museum and the district, and it's positive. All of it is positive. It's just how to move it forward in the right direction and build, basically.
One for all and all for one.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Jim.
just back to Councillor Scott's question. I think some of us more opinionated board members have some ideas about how that committee should work. And we'd be quite happy to sit down with whoever from the district to sort out issues like what representation, what's the mandate, where do we meet, when do we meet, those kind of things. I think we can get that together very, very quickly. It's just a matter of, we need to know who we're talking to, so we can appoint somebody from the board and be responsible for getting that on. If somebody from council wants to take that role on, we can get it going quick.
I was just agreeing, we need to get that framework developed and see what everybody wants on there. And we've spent a couple of years with this council building coalitions, because the person has more power with, you know, more voices. So I think that if we get that as much as we can established to take to UBCM and get that a good framework in order, that going forward with whomever is on council coming up, that there'll be some good, strong guidelines.
what we'll do is our next council meeting, I think is the 4th or 5th, or
It's the 4th, I think.
and we'll bring it up to the councilman, that meeting, and decide who council will sit on this committee, and then they can work with the museum and the geopark. Whoever else is going to be part of this, and get to a point where we'll have the start of a committee.
I think we need to be a bit careful. When you count DTR, the museum, and the geopark, and the regional district, and tourism and heritage, you're starting to get into big numbers, and I think we really need to limit the membership of the committee, not in terms of which groups are represented, but by how many. So if you start to get 2 or 3 from each group, then the next thing you know, you're in 15 or 20 people, and it becomes totally unworkable.
I think the issues that we've had have been between the geopark, museum, and the DTR. And I think that's, to me, that's where this committee should start, and sort out the problems that we've got. And then if it has to be expanded down the road, that it could be. But I think we've got to sort out our own problems. That's where the issue seems to lie, is between those 3 groups. I don't know what council feels about that, but that's the way.
I think the stronger team you can build to go to the problems, the better off you are. And that's why we're interested in seeing the regional district and the First Nations. The First Nations are going to do what they want to do with their tourism and stuff. They've got Charlie Lake, but they also have the interest in the Six Peaks dinosaur site, which is under the pseudo nation traditional territory. And until they get their act together, we're backing off from that site. It's protected. We're not doing any work on it, partly because we can't afford to, but partly because they don't want us to until they make up their mind what they want to do with it. And we've presented a couple of options to them with respect to either an on-site facility development or an off-site at Hudson Hope that talks about what it is. And either one of those options fit nicely with the Northern Dinosaur Trail concept that Dr. McRae has been working on for quite a long time, which involves Grand Cache, Philip J. Curry Museum, us, Hudson Hope, possibly the site at Pink Mountain, the Charlie Lake site, of course, and Ross River in the Yukon Territory. The First Nations there are interested in the paleontology site and the potential economic development coming from that. And we go on to Guernsey and Whitehorse and a couple of sites over in the Yukon. Tremendous marketing tool. If you want tourism, if you go down to Colorado and around Denver and that area, they have the Dinosaur Diamond Trail that they promote. And it's a whole city of museums that are some bigger than others, and the potential for tourism development is really there. We're not so much a tourism agency. What we do can provide tourism opportunities, and I think that if I can use the analogy of General Motors, the guys on the line that are building the trucks aren't expected to be out on the weekend selling them. Occasionally they'll use one or two of them in their TV marketing, but they're building the trucks. And that's what we're doing with the science work. We're building the truck. There are other people that are qualified, more knowledgeable about doing the marketing and the tourism development and those kind of things. So we're providing that product. And I think we need to keep that in mind as well. There are things that we can do better than we've done in the past, no doubt, in terms of providing programs that are more suitable to the community. Not everybody is interested in the science work, that's obvious. But boy, you get kids around dinosaurs and they're interested. They are, one gentleman I was talking to the other day was at one of the Smithsonian buildings in New York, in Washington. And he said the whole building was, you could wander around at your will. But in one small corner, they had a dinosaur display, and he said you couldn't get in there for kids. They were all there. They loved it. And that's what we've been trying to do is, through our educational programs, to provide that interest and that kid-friendly atmosphere. There are things that we could probably do, space limitations that create some problems, but some things that we could probably do better with minimal expense to provide some kid-friendly activities within the museum. There's a limit to that depending on what funding we have. Philip J. Curry Museum, for example, had several $1 million dumped into it. They have a really extensive online type of activity for kids. But not very many people are aware that for 6 months that whole program was shut down. And there were only 2 people in Canada that could fix it, one from Alberta and one from Ontario. So there's a limit to what we can do reasonably in a community of this size with the budget we have to provide kid-friendly activity. And it's a nice phrase, kid-friendly, but what does it really mean? And what's really achieved?
You know, I know what the council has been after, just that conversation. I don't think we've had that conversation. We haven't had the conversations of, you know, you look at even in the event center there, that little sandbox, some of their board members built. You know, I think it cost them $2,000.
One of the more popular ones we've had, when we've had community events at the museum is the sandbox out in the community garden. It's a cooperative venture between us and the community garden. And the kids dig for dinosaur bones. They're not
It's
real
pretty simple
bones,
stuff sometimes.
but that's what they love. They're real hands-on stuff.
You know, if we all remember back, a year ago, that issues all seemed to start with the AGM of the Geopark. That's where things seemed to fall apart. And I don't think council was even part of that. It was, we kind of reacted to that, but I think that the Geopark AGM this year is maybe the start of the solution, because now there's museum people back on the board of the Geopark, and I think if we all start working together, we can get back to where we were before that one last year, you know. And if we look back, I had a talk with Charles here on Saturday, and we look back at it, and a lot of that stuff don't seem so big anymore, you know, but it did at that time. So I think we can get past this. I think we can work together and build a really good product here for this town. And like I say, I've always supported the museum. I've had, this last year, I've had some issues with just some of the way things were done, but we can get past that, and I'm sure you had the same issues, so.
So,
Yes.
when you're talking about the, some of the discussions we've had is that it was thought that it's District of Tumber Ridge and the museum that has to get together first to decide how they're going to pull everybody else in and where they're going to go. But if the two of us aren't together on what we're trying to do, then it's pretty hard to pull other people in, because really, what do you want? And the thing is you, as the regional district rep, have great powers when it goes to the regional district at that, and to be able to figure who all you really need at the table and how to set it up. It's mainly at the interest of the district and the museum. Not meaning that that's going to be a final, but that could be a starting block, as those two getting together and deciding how they're going to work together and who else they want to bring in to everything, and then move it forward from there.
I'm not sure how everybody else feels. Personally, I would like to see the Geopark and the regional district part of this right off the bat too.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
That's the groups that got to work together. I see a lot. I've seen a lot of support from the regional district for what we're doing here in Tumber Ridge. You know, even though there's been some press to come out that didn't sound that way, there's a lot of support there for the Geopark and the museum. And I think it's what presented. They're the same though. They want us to solve our problems.
Certainly, the cooperation that was present when the old Lionsgate study was done with the regional district and the district of council support for it, and the involvement of the museum and some of the discussions with the consultants. That was a real model of how to develop, how to go forward, and that was where the concept of the 200,000 from the district, 200,000 from the regional district, and go to the province for $400,000 for a reasonable budget for a museum of this size and scope. And I think we've kind of drifted away from that a bit.
And I think that was done before the Geopark was.
Oh, that was well before that was
Things have changed. So
it was about
we gotta change what-
6 years ago, because it was that study that it was 5 or 6 years ago, because it was that study that gave the regional district the ability to go forward with its $200,000 contribution. That is what the purpose of the study was to find out, can we do this as a regional district, and is it worthwhile? And that was the decision that was made at the time. So that was before even this council was in
2006.
place. So we need to
Councillor Scott?
Well, I was just thinking, the importance of all four of them meeting. I know I sat in as liaison when Councillor Kirby was away for the last TRUG meeting, and they were talking about redoing master plans, and I know you guys will probably be working on some of those things too. So the importance of getting everybody collaborating and working together is so that we don't have duplicity on a lot of the things, because it is a small community and a lot of volunteer hours. So everyone needs to be specializing in what they do best, and but still working together.
Yeah.
So
If you heard me saying that I disagreed with that, you didn't hear me right. I'm saying the very beginning, if the two of these organizations get together and then you make sure that you've got everybody that you think you should have there, and you work together to bring them all together. And you don't really start the committee until you got all of them, but to get started towards the committee. You're not just going to the first meeting, set the committee up, I don't think. You're gonna have some discussions about how it should be. And if the district and the museum aren't together on things, or got the general purpose of what you're doing in agreement, then it's not gonna go anywhere, even if the others are on board, so.
I think to start it, to have both presidents from Geopark and the museum, Councilor Kirby, and the representative from the regional district sat down and decided what they felt that this committee should consist of. I think that cuts it down to just a few people, and they're it'll be easier to make decisions.
yeah, and with an alternate, like I totally agree. You start with presidents and then an alternate if somebody can't make it, and
Yeah.
then that limits the number. But the biggest thing is to get it moving, like, and it'll evolve.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The biggest problem we found at the regional district, when you're gonna have a committee, you don't have an alternate. If you're gonna have two people responsible, you have two people responsible. So each one has got the same powers when they go to the meeting. They can both go at the same time, but if one can't be there, the other one still has the powers. With an alternate, then you're changing off with, and often there is, well, you just don't know everything that goes along.
They don't have the complete information because they haven't been at the last few meetings or whatever. That makes sense. Well, go ahead.
Thank you, Richard. The meeting that you're having with Brian from the province this week, that will Sharissa be able to make that meeting?
No,
No?
no, she's
I
out of town this week.
know.
Completely,
Charles
Charles
and
will
I
be there.
and Lisa.
So, yeah, okay, I was just, because that's, we might get some answers right there on how to start with that. You can maybe even start thinking of some dates that we can work together and meet before the 9th. And then, try to work from that.
Before the 4th.
I mean, before the 4th, and then he's back on the, yeah. If the 29th, you guys are meeting on, what day is it today? I don't even know. So 27th, yeah. Travel, but this should be a good start right here.
Sharissa should be back in town next week, shouldn't she?
Yes.
She's alternate weeks, and she was here last week when we originally had the meeting set up for, and then that changed, and so she should be here next week. Charles indicated he's gonna be gone sometime pretty soon.
Yes, he's leaving later.
And I hate to see anything happen without Charles. He's
About 10
such
days or
a
so, he said he's
fellow of knowledge.
I think Charles leaving this week, that's what he told me.
He will be leaving a paper trail before he goes.
No, it's gone for 3 months. But Charles isn't on your board anymore. He's a
He's an
scientific
advisor.
advisor.
He resigned because he felt it was a conflict of interest, because now he's retired as a family doctor. He's sort of going off doing paleontological research, and so he's working a lot with the paleontologists, and felt there was a conflict of interest if he was technically their boss, on the board and working with them. It would be a conflict of interest, so he resigned, but he stayed on as an advisor. He's doing a PhD in paleontology too. The man never stops. But as I say, he's such a wealth of knowledge. He brings it to the committee, and this is such an important committee. I think Charles should be on it. I mean, if he can't make the founding meeting before the UBCM sort of thing, I think it's important. Well, I think it's important he be on it. He might say, no, I don't want to be on it.
He's on the Geopark board, so.
Yeah, he's on the Geopark board.
Decision of the Geopark, I guess.
And that kind
But Charles is our one person who's been here since day one,
yeah.
other than the paleontologist.
Well, we've got to face it, if it wasn't for Charles, we probably wouldn't have a geopark or a museum. Yeah, I don't know if it, I mean, as he's on the geopark board and he sort of represents the museum, I don't know if he could, in order to cut down on the physical number of people in this committee, whether he could represent both at the same time.
It seems like a bit of a conflict, but I don't know. That's for you guys to figure out. We're not involved with that.
Well, yeah, that's true, yeah.
Okay, I guess the other thing is this survey. You see the questions there that have you got to the agenda?
I just have one comment, and not as a museum foundation board member, but as a citizen community. And I'm wondering that while the background talks about $200,000, there's no indication in the survey about what level of funding is being proposed in the survey. And so I personally would have difficulty in trying to figure out how to answer one.
Well, I think the funding amount is determined by the council that's
Yeah.
doing the funding, so, I mean, so
Yeah.
that there is no, I don't think there should be a
Yeah,
amount in there.
I understand. I just wanted to give my perspective as a here.
Yeah, but we're just, okay, this is how we came upon this, is that we felt, and it was, this came from the museum quite a bit, is that we weren't doing the proper thing at council here in our funding moves towards the museum. So we thought we'd find out what the residents of the town want, or what they expect out of this, and like I said, it's not a binding, it's a survey. It's not a binding thing, it's just to see where the majority of the people see us going with this. And at one point, when I brought it up, I was talking with Charles too, that he was in favor of this, but the last time he talked about it, he wasn't that much in favor of it anymore. So, and I don't know where your board feels, what your board feels about this. I'd like to know that, actually.
I don't think as a board we have discussed this referendum because it's always been up in the air,
Yeah,
I think as a board, we sort of
I
not
think,
for it. Personally, I think it just muddies the waters. I mean, once we get this committee going forward and then you get a referendum or a survey thing that goes right opposite to what you're aiming for, it's sort of, I really don't see the point of it myself. And I have questions on, the trouble with referenda is that it's so easy to load the question, do you still beat your wife, that type of thing. How do you answer it? And and you can continue to fund the museum only if child tourism and family-related services and displays are increased. Well, what does that mean? You got to remember, it is a museum. It's not a child's playground. You don't want the children climbing over the displays. Did you see that thing on television about a month ago? That kid let a room loose in the art museum in Europe, and he climbed up this $200,000 statue and broke it, pulled it down and broke it, and then the mother's got to pay for that because she let the kid do that. I mean, you've got to bear in mind, it's a museum. It's not a playground. We do have child-friendly things going on all the time, even though we've been cut back this summer. We did manage to open. We did manage to employ a couple of young ladies to sort of run some of the programs. And if you've been watching social media, people of Tumble Ridge and that, Dante Chembry has been posting, that the bring your kids to the museum because we're going to be doing molds of, dinosaur stuff like that. I mean, we do have child-related things. And tourism, I mean, the prime example is Dr. McRae's initiative to get a dinosaur trail going. You must be aware of that. And, starting in Alberta, going through BC, going up to the Yukon, almost all the way to Alaska. And when he sort of contacted all these communities, there were other communities that heard about this and sort of were calling him and saying, hey, can we get in on this? I think the Ross River one was one that they, he hadn't approached them because I don't think he really felt there was anything there really in the paleontological field. That
He was approached by the Yukon government.
And they approached him.
Look at the site and see what it's intended.
Oh, okay.
See, this is, just what you're saying there is a perfect example of this committee working, because we, as a council, I don't think I've heard that in this room.
You should have done. I mean, you've got a council liaison who presumably tells you this.
Yes,
thing.
but it, if the museum comes and says, this is what we're doing for tourism, I think that carries a lot more weight, and I know it does for me. So I'm not.
No, I don't.
Joanne does a good job. That
No, I'm not saying that, but I mean, this has, we didn't. I mean, we just assume you would know through normal channels.
We're in the same town. I mean, that's.
Can I answer? Thank you, Rishabh. No, and when it's, to put all of this into 3 questions, I agree, it is confusing. But, when we all know about the dinosaur trail and everything else, this is about public being engaged with our own public and our own citizens who think that maybe, there's nothing fun to do there. It doesn't mean that you have to go over and beyond, but it's been said in many reports that the interactive children's does not keep a child, coming back again, repeat customers. And that's one thing we haven't sat down and actually said, okay, when you are getting the district's money, your 200,000, say the regional district's money, then you're leveraging more funds for something else, and say at the end of the day, you have $600,000 budget. Let's see a little bit more of that budget increased into something that's going to, like maybe a new display throughout the year, maybe some marketing techniques, which was one suggestion that was brought by one of the reports, was one of the biggest assets we have within the museum is the lantern tour. Market that. They said we are losing money on anybody coming up the Alaska Highway. That billboard should be at the end of the highway. We should be marketing that. And there's always reasons why we can't, but we've never actually sat down and said, but why can't we? Let's make it so we can. That's something that we've talked about as a council. Maybe we come with project-based things that you say, look, we want to make this work. How can you help? Let's do it. Let's figure it out. Let's get a report done. Those kind of things, that's what we're talking about.
That would be very helpful, Joanne.
And those are the conversations we have had, but they actually don't ever make it into where we need to sit down and get that kind of things set out. So, this council has put a lot of money into tourism and branding. That's one thing I look at the museum. You haven't embraced the branding yet. So there's things that we can do on that end too. So that's when we say when we're not, we're wasting money on certain things, that's where we need to get together so we build that brand stronger. And the museum has to be a big part of that, because even out of the visioning session they had, they said maybe the museum might not be what's bringing everybody in, but it's that piece you need because that's the history of it. That's where we started from. So again, we're all on the same page, but yet we can't seem to get past little different, and so.
If this is what council has been discussing, the branding, the tourism, and things like that, well, why didn't you contact the museum and say, we want to bring you into this discussion so that when we do our branding, you're a part of it? I feel that we've left.
I think the committee is the place for
Yeah, and
this
that's-
sort of discussion. That's why we need the
This is-
committee to do this.
this is-
I'd like to, as an outsider that hasn't got a vote, I think the best results could be number one. Because that don't exclude anything. I don't think.
The one I'm hoping for.
Well, it don't exclude anything because that allows you to do a lot of things.
My personal reaction when this first came out as a referendum, I was really worried. Because typically referendums are on a yes or no on one big issue, and there's lots of background information to it. There wasn't anything on this, just going to go referendum with 3 questions and not a lot of detail. That's going down a dangerous trail. The survey is a much better way to go about it. That's in your right. You get feedback as a council from all sorts of places, and the survey is one of them. The feedback you get from your ratepayers is another, and the feedback you get from the government is another, and we get some of that feedback too. So the survey is a much better way to go than a referendum, in my view. That's my personal view. We didn't discuss it at the board meeting because it never came to us as a question. Do you support this or do you not support it?
So I think we're jumping way ahead in things here, and some of the decisions we talked about earlier need to be made, and a group gets together, and each member of that group is got the same power to bring things forward as no matter which group you're from. So these sort of things can all be discussed at that group at a smaller bunch. And I think throwing it around here, we end up getting into innuendos and these sort of things, and we don't want that. We did not want to come here tonight and do that. We wanted to build bridges. We don't want to destroy any that we already got. And that I'll be talking to Chris about the things that I had, and I understood that it was all forwarded, but I must be wrong because he's haven't had it. So I will be having Phil and Chrissy in on what happened tonight. And the only reason why she asked me to be there is because, I did 35 years of what you guys are doing. I've got an idea that the sort of things that really task you to even try to do. But the way we can help you a lot better. And cooperation has always been my main thing, because I would have never got nothing done myself, but it was either my staff, my counselors, somebody from the community got things rolling. It wasn't me. I could get them rolling, and then they could get a lot more of the friends rolling, and then I could do something. And so that's more or less what convinced me to be on the board. Once I was done with the regional district, then I got convinced to be here. And I had, for a moment, think that I wouldn't like to be, because it is such a great thing, and we need to make it go so well. And I know the huge difficulties Tumbler Ridge has had been so isolated and so new. That newness really gets in your way sometimes, trying to grow something.
Well, thanks, Fred. Thanks for that, and you do come up with a good one every once in a while. Okay. Councilor Cook?
Thanks. Fred, I'm not saying she didn't forward anything, I was just asking
No,
which one it
no,
was.
no, I
So it could have been
understand.
forwarded, I was just
Yeah.
trying to get clarification so I could look it up. So it could have been forwarded, I just wasn't sure which one you were talking
No,
about.
I wouldn't. The thing is, if we know something going forward, it's pertinent information for you to have. So,
Okay.
so if we knew the committee was going forward, then that information would be part of what was put forward. And I think it was very reconcilable to work together. It's the whole, and I'm very confident that Krista can do that.
Letter you're talking about?
No,
Is it the one that says that Mayor McPherson had the meeting with the BC Museums Association and that the museum's formally requesting the creation of the Museum Development Committee?
the development committee is the crutch of it, yes. So that,
So that it would have been back July 2nd?
referred back to that, but this is just last week.
I don't have it then.
Anyway, we've got
Yes.
a plan now, and we'll just get going on that and see if we can get this done in the next few weeks. And
You're going to make a decision on who's going to be on this committee, or, and we need to make
Yeah,
the same decision?
I think Joanne is our
To the meeting together,
the head of our tourism and that, and
and Helen?
Helen's our alternate. They can, and I like that idea, have the alternate and the representative there at the same time, so they don't miss me.
We'll take a message back to the board and get a couple of representatives appointed and get together with you as quick as we can.
All right, so we'll go from there, and thank you very much for.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. As Councillor McKay said last week, we both made mistakes. Let's put it all behind us and go forward from here. So
Yeah.
I think we're doing that. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So we done?
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Fred, that's a long drive for you.
That's okay. That's good indeed, so. As you noticed, I'm not so good at remembering a lot of things, specifics.
That's what something you guys favor every once in a while.
So I gotta depend on other people to get it finished.
Okay. So, 2.2. I don't know what council wants to do with that, if, just want to bring it to our next meeting and we'll have, where we go with that. Any more discussion on it?
Can we move here, or do we here to move to the next meeting, or is it?
I think we move it, take it to the next meeting and we'll vote on it there and see where it goes.
That's good.
Good to everybody? Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just talking to Sharissa to see what this is about.
Alrighty, question and answer period. Yes, go ahead.
Permission to speak?
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, it's not a question to anybody on the board or anything. I just came here, instead of watching it on YouTube from the council meeting, right? But while I'm here, before I go, I'd like to put my 2 bits in as a resident of Tumbler Ridge. For the museum, I've only been there twice in the whole time I've lived here, because a resident's gonna go and wait till their dad or mom comes and visits them and go again. Maybe they might make it 2 trips in 5 years, I don't know. But I did go in 3 times I've been there. August 18th, I think the book said 834 people at the end of August 18th for the month, from the 1st to the 18th. I saw that it blew me away. I thought, wow. And then the days after that, because I know the run was there happening, so a lot of people were in town. I noticed other days with a lot, you know, I didn't count them. So I just saw that maybe August is maybe it's real slow sometimes or whatever. And one other thing, I don't agree with everything in the museum. You know, some of those posters on the wall goes away against my faith, right? But as a resident, I think it's great. I think, and it is what you guys did here in the last while. Your job's done. It sounds like you're gonna work. It's gonna work out somehow. So I got nothing to say, but then good job. I'll
Thanks,
see you
guys.
down the road.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Beth?
I'd just like to say that when I first moved here, the first few years, my granddaughter came up every summer and went to dinosaur school. And I figure when they're doing dinosaur school now, if they charge the, you know, like get the kids signed up, set an amount, and then that pays for the person that's teaching them and taking them out for their digs and stuff. And I even suggested that, because I've been in retail for years, I would buy the stuff, because I know what sells in there, put it in there, they could sell it and make money. It would cost them nothing. They didn't want to do that because they got all the money from the town, which I thought, wow, you know, how nice. And they've got stuff that they sell in there. They don't charge any commission, yet the lady that's sitting there getting paid is selling it, and I don't get it. And the paleontologists, I wish they were here. And the paleontologists, when they're called out to different countries, are those countries paying for them to come, or are we paying for them to travel? And be in a group, hospital foundation, seniors, or whatever, you know, like at the end of the year, you come here and you tell, you know, we tell you what we've spent, what we want to spend the next year. There's our budget, which includes everything. And it should be run like a business, because you have to account for every cent that you get.
That discussion's been had around this table here a couple times, so
Yeah,
it does make
every
sense.
year. You know,
Yeah.
because, and you know, all the groups that go in there, Garrett?
Yeah.
They can have a meeting in that room. That doesn't mean they go in and see the museum stuff. They sign books, right? So, and I've been at the museum, or not the museum, but the info center a lot, and never once has somebody come in and said, when I'm there, where's the museum? It's the girls that work in there that say, oh, you're going on a hike, and this is how you get to the museum. So,
Thanks.
Well, you know.
Tim, I think, was first.
That's fine. I guess my only question is, where did the whole idea of a community survey or a referendum even come from? And the reason I ask that is, we as tax-paying citizens elect you guys to not, in my opinion, to make these kind of decisions. If it's gonna be left up to the, I realize it's not binding, the referendum or community survey, but if you're gonna have a survey on one thing like that, because it's based on X amount of dollars being spent, then, in my opinion, do it for everything. Do it for the amount of money. Do we support the geopark and that funding? Do we support the paving and that funding? I mean, I just don't understand why one specific thing is being put on one group in town. And I'm not saying I support them or I don't support them. That's just an open question, is why a referendum on just this one particular thing?
But I think my opinion on that is that $2.5 million has been spent here. And I really think the community should have some say in that. This isn't new to this council. This has been discussed at every council I've ever been on, that if we're going to be looking at something that big on a forever type thing, we should be taking it to the people that the people have their say in what they think, how they'd like to see it happen. So, I know what's important, I know what's important to this town, in my view, and I'd like to see it here. Now, I still think we at this table have to get the best for this community for when we're spending tax dollars. And I just think this survey is going to help us make the right decisions. So, you know, we have made lots of decisions on this council, and I don't agree with you on something like paving, because that's infrastructure. That's got to be done.
Yeah, that was a bad example, but the geopark is another prime example.
And it is, and that might come down the road, but we've been doing this for 15 years. You know, and then it's come up at the regional district too. This should be a referendum type thing, if the funding they're putting into our museum. So that might happen. I'm not sure. It seemed to make sense to me when I thought about it.
And to me, it's not even so much about the $200,000. To me, it's about the amount of staff time and our time that we have constantly devoted to the museum. To me, I would like it to be a cut and dried, easy solution that we get to the table. We tell them the simple things that we want them to do, and if you do it, we'll give you the money that we're telling you, and provide us all the financial documentation that we ask for day one. So now we have found out, the way I understand it, we have all the financial documentation, correct? Right?
I think so.
So we've been asking for this finance, they've said they've given it to us, and we said we didn't have it. We got it. So it's here, we haven't seen it, I still haven't seen it, but apparently it's in the district, the CFO has the information that I've been looking for. Whether or not I'm allowed to see it, may be a different question or a different answer, but to me, after being here for 4 years, the amount of time that our staff has to devote to going through this paperwork and trying to come up with solutions and try to come up with ideas to make the museum work and satisfy council and satisfy the museum and satisfy the geopark, that takes away from what we should be doing and what our focus should be on. In my mind, this is a minor thing. $200,000 is a minor thing. Our issue is going to be with what the province is trying to do with the caribou and stuff in our area. That's going to be the issue. That's going to stop the mining. That's going to stop the forestry. That's going to stop the pipelines, the oil and gas, recreation, ATVs. All that stuff is going to be stopped if we don't get a handle on that. This, to me, needs to be put to bed once and for all, get this museum committee going. But they have to, it's all fine and dandy to sit in here and be happy-go-lucky, but they have to make concessions as well. There are certain things that this council has asked for time and time and time again, and they need to come to the table.
Can I add that?
Yeah.
I understand all this. The issue I have, I guess, is the fact that you and I both know that the average, I won't say the average, but a huge number of the citizens that vote in this town aren't well enough informed to look at a question like that. They don't have both sides of the story. They haven't put in the effort to find both sides of the story and get that information. So it's almost a loaded question, in my opinion.
You know what? And I look at it as a double-edged sword, actually, because I think that voter turnout is going to be those that are in favor of the museum, right? So I think that, you know, if we get 600 people show up to vote, I think that a large majority of them are the pro-museum and the pro-people that want to fund the museum are going to be in there to vote. That is also an issue for a referendum in my mind, because that loads up that side of the people wanting to do it. You know what I mean? Vice versa, if you're having a referendum about ATV and you'd have every guy in the ATV club would show up and vote, where in actuality, how many really do show up and vote? 10, 20% of them maybe? Right? And that is an issue with having a referendum is on my mind on voting day as well, because it loads up the type of people that are showing up for the election.
Ken, you had something?
Some of them already spoke the words that I was going to say, but I've been here for 12 years now. There's a whole bunch of new people out there that don't know what's happened in the past, and I think that their decisions could hurt the museum. Now, I was never in favor of the museum in the first place, and I didn't like the way it was run, because I was up there and I saw how it was run. But right now, if I put $2.5 million out in a business, I would make sure it stayed going. And I think that's what you have to do. I think you put it out to to people that don't understand or don't know. You're the people that know. You've been here for 4 years, and you should settle it right now. That's my opinion.
This is coming up to a vote, so
Yeah.
we'll see where it goes.
No, this is not about pay.
Yes, it's very important.
No, but this is,
Oh, yeah.
it's not about pay.
Okay.
I just wanna have
Okay.
one quick comment.
Yeah, sure.
In the spring, you guys had that meet the mayor and council, and I brought up a pretty controversial question about saying maybe you should put the museum out to a bid contract, because there was issues at the time that were public saying that it wasn't run properly. So maybe there's a switch up there. That following Monday was a council meeting. I was here at it. I go out to leave, I got bombarded by the museum board saying that I overstepped their toes. They said that they've been putting out letters for support, for funding, and stuff like that. Now, if they have said they've done these things, so they're looking for funding from private investors, businesses, the government, can they supply those to you guys if you guys are the ones putting up money as well? So obviously, if you guys are cutting the funding, Peace River Regional District is probably wondering why. So they probably looked into it and said, oh, okay, well, maybe their amounts aren't adding up either. So maybe they had a memorandum of understanding as well, and they didn't fulfill them. So is that something you can request and ask for, see where, if they had a grant writer, do they have a grant writer? Where have they been putting their delegation? Because if you guys have been doing this for 12 years, funding them every year, why is it now that they're trying to get the province on board? Or, you know, other people, they should have been doing this far longer than this. They can't just rely on the $200,000 every year and think to get us skirt along. Because usually, if you're gonna get 200,000, it's gonna skirt you through the whole 12 months of the year. I'm sure that I don't know when your contract is, start to finish, but why would it end dead center in the summer? Or right before summer when that money probably should have hosted all the way through the summer at least.
Yeah.
You know, and there should have been no reason that they would have lost those contracts for people coming in for those tours, and international people, because they're always toting that they're bringing international people here. The other thing is, if you're trying to get international people here, what's the number one way to do that? The internet. You got your phone, you got a computer, you want to go to Mexico, you look online. You want to see what the resort looks like. You want to see what they have to offer. You go onto their website, it's outdated. None of their members on the current board are even on there anymore. Like, it's Sarah Gamble, it's Sue Kenny, it's people that aren't on there for various reasons, whatever. But it doesn't even show you everything that they have there. There's no interactive photos. Like, if you want to pull people here from outside, update that. That's number one, social media. And I'm not saying they're doing a bad job, but they shouldn't be asking you guys that are giving them money for advice or support. Maybe they should have somebody to come in and help them with that, like whether it's a social media advisor or interactive or a children's occupation, you know, helper, whatever, right? Just to say, what do kids at certain age groups from 6 to 14 or however the age group is, what's going to engage them? What should you do? What are other museums doing? That's just my own 2 cents. That's a loaded question because I can go on and on and on about it.
You brought up a lot of good issues there, and hopefully, if we get this committee going, we can those questions.
They could probably get amalgamated and work it out.
Like I said, I read at the beginning, communication has been a big. And
that's the biggest problem too, is social media has been the biggest issue because they even put out on Facebook their dismissal on the board members. Now they put those photos on Facebook, and then I even confronted them about that. I said that's not very ethical because what if I did that to my previous employer? You know, whether I quit or I got fired or whatever, I put a photocopy of that out on the internet. Do you think the employer is going to be happy about that? Guaranteed not. So they have to treat it as a business as well, not as a retirement hobby or whatever, right?
Yeah, thank you for that. I just gotta say, I keep saying communication. I've been to the same meetings you go to. You don't get all the, there's gotta be other meetings. So, because some of the stuff doesn't come out. So, I'm not coming down.
Oh, no, I don't take it like that at all.
Yes.
I had a chat with Sharissa just by text to see what letter, and she said there's no letter. She feels he might be confused about a letter that was sent to the PRRD, but there's been nothing that came to the district.
There you are, point and parcel, right?
Yeah.
Here we are, they're talking about a letter, we're confused about it, we don't have the right people in the room again, like it's typical, right? Same thing with you and Charles the other night, right? Charles says you guys got the information, you say we don't have the information, who is it? We got it, we don't have it. You know, like it's, and for us to sit here to try to make decisions based on half the information, it's impossible.
That information you're talking about, we have to ask for that from the museum board. Because it's given to our financial department as, the words, confidential.
Okay.
Yeah, it can't be.
But not revealed to council that we have it,
No,
right? All we had to do was say, listen, we have it with the CFO, and you guys can't see it. So if you want to see it, you've got to ask it from the museum. And that is the communication gap that is missing here, right?
You know, and I've heard that before from other CFOs. Kind of skipped my mind.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Frustrating again.
Alrighty, so we'll ask for an adjournment. Kirby,